Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the program, Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Glad you're along for the ride. Tell your friends and family to join our program. We got a good one. It's Thursday. It's Brent Beaird, a college football analyst. In the second portion today, we'll get back into Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup next week when playoffs start. But we're going to talk Gator basketball. Chris Harry from FloridaGators.com. He was at the scrimmage, the orange and blue basketball scrimmage the other night. I believe the first game is this Monday, if I'm not mistaken. If you missed it last night, the Astros tie up the World Series. They have a combined no-hitter against the Phillies, and Game 5 is this evening as well. We're going to go to the Titan MR hotline now, and we're going to be joined by our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, good morning. Hope everybody is doing well as we get to November. That's hard to believe, is it not? And big games that are coming up. Great to see you in the press box last Saturday for Florida, Georgia. Enjoyed being able to be there. So, but yes, it's a big week coming up. First of the rankings for the college football playoff. And as you and I say every year, folks need to relax. It's just the first week, and the rankings will have a way of settling down and shaking out in the next few weeks.
Yes, no doubt about it. Before we jump into it, I want to get this Facebook Live that Andy just chimed in, brought to you by Mellon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. He says, Shane, did you see that Mike Morgan did a nice segment on Ben Chase last night at the Bowling Green Western Michigan game? Was his 39th this season. Ben, are you familiar? Brent, are you familiar with Ben Chase?
A little bit.
Okay.
I flipped back with both those games. I love the action, so that was fun to see.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So Ben was on our show a couple of weeks ago. He's a Gator grad trying to get to 70 football games. This dude's driven over like 30,000 miles this year. And I was flipping back and forth like you between the two MAC games and the World Series, and I caught the piece they were doing on Ben. So we appreciate Ben coming on our program. All right, Brent, the Big 12 apparently signed a new deal with, who is it, with ESPN or Fox?
They've got, yeah, that's kind of what they want to spread this out if they can. It's a new 6-year media rights deal. So and everybody wants to know how much money that would be. And the guess is it might be eventually $50 million per school. Now, right now, they've got $31 million per school. But again, that's not near where you've got with the SEC and the Big Ten. But look, you've got to do what you can do. They've got expansion coming next year, so it's a new deal, and they are happy about that.
Yeah, I want to say I read somewhere on Twitter, I believe, maybe Bianchi was talking about it. I don't know what deal the ACC has, but he was saying with UCF going into the Big 12, I guess that's next year. They're going to be getting a check for more money than Miami and FSU are going to be getting from their deal.
Well, the thing that everybody's trying to do is get their deal in before the playoffs expand, and so. And again, some of the problem with the ACC is being tied down. I mean, it's been a blessing and a curse for them to this media rights deal that goes through 2035. And again, I know folks have looked at that to see if there's any way some of these schools can get out of being in the ACC. But for now, it's pretty ironclad. We'll see if that changes over the years. But yes, the money is a big deal right now as these schools circle the wagons to get their deal done.
Yeah. Big game, as you mentioned, well, maybe one of the biggest games in college football recent history. The Vols, and we'll talk more about it a little bit later, but the Vols are rolling into Athens. 1 versus 2 doesn't play very often, Brent.
No, that's very rare, frankly, when that happens. Now, we thought that might be what it was going to be. Instead, now it's 1 and 3. So it would have been, if we'd had a 1 and 2, only the third time in history that 2 SEC teams ranked 1 and 2 and the polls have met. One was obviously the Alabama and LSU in 19 and Alabama and LSU in 2011. Now, of course, they played twice in 11 in the national championship game. Also, I was at that 2011 game in Tuscaloosa, and that was the closest thing I've ever been to. That was an actual playoff game during the season. It was just almost undescribable. But anyway, yes, 1 and 2 matchups are rare, particularly in the league.
That 2011, was that like a 9-6 game?
It was.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And then they played for the national championship in New Orleans, and the Alabama defense at that point was just frankly unbelievable. LSU really didn't get past the 50-yard line until late in the game. But yes, it was that season, and in about 90% of both those teams ended up in the NFL.
Yeah. Brent, there's some teams that were ranked in the preseason that are no longer ranked. Out of the ones here, I'll read them real quick. You had Notre Dame, A&M, Oklahoma, Baylor, Michigan State, Miami, Pitt, Wisconsin, Arkansas, Kentucky, Cincy, and Houston, and BYU. Out of all those, what surprised you the most out of those teams not being ranked right now?
Well, A&M got so much love in the preseason, thinking this was going to be the year. You remember Desmond Howard picked A&M in his national championship game. A lot of folks have reminded him about that. Miami's they really got a lot of love too. Miami was pretty much 15-16 in every magazine, and that certainly has not happened by any stretch. And I'll say quickly, I think Oklahoma was another one. Folks thought that they would just rebuild quickly, and unfortunately that just doesn't happen. So in big game with Clemson, Notre Dame this weekend, but you're right, a lot of the teams ranked early, and then we find out what happens when reality hits and the season comes on.
Yeah. You're a Heisman voter right now. I think if the season ended, Hendon Hooker would win it. But there's still a lot of football to be played. I think he's had the best year, obviously, out of anyone. Where do you see the Heisman race right now, Brent?
Well, I think it's some combination, frankly, with Hooker. C.J. Stroud will not be forgotten in this. Blake Corum at Michigan has come on a little bit. He's a running back with them. Bryce Young, certainly, if they were to finish strong with wins over LSU, Ole Miss, and whoever they play in the SEC championship game, I think that would mean something to the voters. Caleb Williams obviously having a good year at USC, but again, it's just the first week of November, and it won't be decided until the first week of December.
Yeah, but I'm looking here at the top 5. 4 of them are quarterbacks.
That's right.
And my point is these 4 dudes can throw the football. Hendon Hooker, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, all excellent passers. For sure. All right, Brent, before we jump into going around the league, we got some Facebook Lives here and some texts I want to get to. Scott asked, Brent, everyone's predicting a 2-horse race between Kiffin and Freeze for the Auburn job. Do you see any other likely candidates?
Well, you just really don't know what Auburn's going to do at this point. I mean, Cohen is the new from Mississippi State, former baseball coach, is the new AD, and there's a lot of talk about this is going to be Cohen's decision and not the brain trust from the big money boosters at Auburn. I'll have to see that to believe it. But I mean, always Freeze and Kiffin are the two names you hear. There's a Grimes at Baylor who also is in this mix that they like. There's a lot of Dion talk. I mean, someone who had more time than you and I actually came up with on Twitter that Dion is going to be flying to Atlanta. I believe it's today for something, and they're trying to put 2 and 2 together that Dion may be meeting with Auburn people. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I have no idea why he's there. Frankly, he may be going to Hawks game for all Shane and I know, but and I'll be honest with you, I think at some point Dion will be a good coach. What I don't know yet, and you may know him more than the rest of us, Shane, but I don't know if he's ready to coach in the SEC. I'm just being real honest about that. I like him. I think he's an incredible recruiter, but as important as that is, there's still more to the job than that. There's always mystery of what Auburn might do. And again, remember, before they hired Harsin, they wanted to hire Kevin Steele, the much-traveled SEC assistant. So, with Auburn, you kind of never know.
No doubt. At Chris Doring Morey's to do Morey's Lending Right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Morey's today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Brent Beaird on the Titan MR hotline. All right, Zach has this question. With Stetson being 25 and Hooker about to turn 25, maybe we should aim at a veteran QB. How much does all the experience help, Shane? Experience helps, but look, BYU's entire football team's about 27 years old.
Yeah.
Chris Winkie, I think, was 28 when he won the Heisman. So they're just good football players. I don't care if they're 25 or 20 or 30. They're really good quarterbacks. And it's not like they've been playing a whole lot. I mean, Hooker played a little bit at Virginia Tech. He sat on a bench at Tennessee, and they inserted him, and he's taken over. Stetson's been all over the place. JUCO, you name it. So, I mean, it may help a little bit, but the bottom line is they know how to play the position, whether they're young, old, or what. There was one more I wanted to get to here real quick. Andy asked, Brent, would Liberty be compensated somehow on Hugh Freeze's 8-year contract extension if he goes to Auburn? There's probably a buyout in there, right?
There is, and people aren't aware of this. Freeze just signed a deal or agreed to it. I don't know if they actually signed it or not, but Freeze just agreed to a deal like last week that to an extension and a raise, he's going to be getting pretty close to $5 million a year, which is certainly not chump change by any means, and the extension. So yes, that there certainly would be. All these contracts have got buyouts in them too. So I mean, I hear different things about that. I've seen where Auburn beat writers have said that despite the rumors that it probably won't be Kiffin and or Freeze. And again, the thing you got to realize is, I'm not saying they will. Ole Miss is off this week. They play Alabama next week. But look, at Ole Miss, if things went right and they played well, Ole Miss could actually be in the SEC championship game. So if you're Auburn, or are you going to wait on Lane Kiffin in order to get the season over with?
Yeah, I don't see Lane leaving Ole Miss, and I know Ole Miss is having a great year. I love the Rebels; they're near and dear to my heart. But they've been so fortunate of who they have on their schedule, and I think it's going to be a bloodbath next week in Oxford. All right, Daryl says here on the Titanamore text line. Good morning, guys. Brent, do you think 3 teams from the SEC can make the playoffs?
Well, there's a lot of talk about that. I mean, if things fell right, could Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama, if they were in the table, make the playoffs? I'll just be frank with you. I think 2 could. I'm not sure I could see the committee doing 3. Now, I've done the mock exercise in Grapevine, and it's fascinating how they do it. But don't think for a minute that this is just all analytics. I mean, these are people who are they know if they pick 3 SEC teams, and while they may be the 3 best teams along with someone else, they also are looking at the college football climate, what that would look like from this committee. So there are just some a lot of common sense stuff that goes into this too, besides just looking at the numbers. So I'm going to say number one, it would take a lot for that to happen. I mean, you'd have to have a loss that we probably don't foresee right now, maybe from Ohio State or Clemson or someone like that. But it's a great question, but I think the reality of that right now would be there are so many moving pieces that would have to happen in order to get 3. I would just say would be doubtful. 2, I think is possible. 3, I think would be a bit much from this committee.
Yeah. On the Titanamore text line, Matt from Mariana says Tennessee's a lot like the 2020 Gators with Kyle Trask. An elite quarterback can cover up a lot of deficiencies. Agreed, 100%.
Yes.
Tennessee's a good team, but they got a horrible defense. This is from an anonymous texter. He says the CFP rankings are dumb. That's what happens when you have a bunch of 80s and presidents ranked teams. Somebody should let Vegas rank the teams. That would be interesting. And then this is from another anonymous texter on the Titanamore text line. He says the Gators football program is dead. Well, it ain't in good shape right now, but it's heading in the right direction. All right, Brent, let's talk about Alabama. The Tide is rolling into Baton Rouge, huge favorites. LSU controls their own destiny to get to the championship game. They're playing much better, but I don't see LSU winning this game.
Both these teams have had a week off, and that's helped them a lot, particularly with Alabama and Bryce Young. LSU also has got seemingly about 40% of that team back from injuries. John Emery was announced yesterday that he will also play, but Jane Daniels really has been the difference. I'm curious what you think about him, Shane, but he's been a real dual threat. Yeah, he really is, and he a real good dual threat quarterback. Bama really has owned this series in Baton Rouge, and they've been dominating the series over the last few years. But again, the reality for this is LSU can win this game. I don't have any doubt about that. The way Bama's been playing, I don't think they will. But Bama's going to have fewer penalties on the road, which has been a real bugaboo for them. And they've got to be able to hold on to the ball. That's also going to be crucial at this point too. So the number of penalties that Alabama has and the turnovers, I think, is going to be huge in this game. So, and by the way, Nick Saban, 71 years old on Halloween, the oldest coach in the SEC and the second oldest coach overall. How about that?
Who's the oldest?
I need to look that up.
I put you on the spot. My bad.
Frank, no, that's okay. It really is.
Do you think Kirk Ferentz older than him?
that's the first name that came to mind with that. That's possible. I'll try to look that up over the next few minutes, but I'll say this: I hope that my stomach is flat and I have the hair and I'm as sharp as Nick Saban is when I'm 71 too.
Yeah, he does not look 71, and he ain't going anywhere for a long time.
No.
I think he'll coach for another 5 or 6 years minimum.
He will.
The Hogs are hosting Liberty. Now the Flames are no joke. Is there going to be a secret plane meeting at the Liberty Hotel from Auburn on this trip?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. Yeah. Now, Liberty's had their problems. They've struggled with Gardner Webb, with Akron. They almost beat Wake Forest and BYU. That was 41-14. But you're right. I mean, this team is much better, and this is why Freeze, whether he goes anywhere or not, gets a lot of attention. And how well that they have played this year. I think Arkansas is still playing better. They actually have got a little bit of momentum. They've won games against BYU and Auburn after a 3-game losing streak. KJ Jefferson is playing well. Rocket Sanders has just been tremendous. Matt Landers, a wide receiver, is doing well too. So this is a very under the radar game. And again, Shane, can we give Arkansas a lot of credit? Cincinnati, BYU, and Liberty this year for non-conference. Boy, if you're a Hog fan, those non-conference games have been great, haven't they?
They really have. They really have. And our listeners say Mac Brown is the oldest.
Yes, that would make sense. Okay.
Yep. So we got great researchers here.
We do.
All right. In Stark Vegas, Auburn, with an interim coach, is rolling into Stark Vegas. My daughter will be at this game supporting her dogs. What do you think about this game? It'll be interesting to see how Auburn responds with not having Harsin on the sidelines.
Cornell Williams is the interim coach.
Cadillac.
Yeah, that's right. So, and look, good for him. Now he's not going to be the head coach. Just to be clear about that. Auburn had a funny thing that happened last week. The PA announcer in the pregame said that Holden Gierner would be the starting quarterback. He's a guy that hadn't played much. And then Robbie Ashery comes out and goes 24-33 for 285. So, look, that may sum up the Auburn year right now, frankly. Tank Bigsby only had 11 carries. That's just unfathomable to me, how he has been misused, frankly, at this point. But you're right. It's going to be a challenge for Auburn to be focused, but yet I think the other reality here is, Mississippi State's looking for an AD right now themselves, and John Cohen went to Auburn. And how quickly will State rebound? They still, even though the Alabama loss, they've had a pretty good year all the way around. Auburn has allowed 1,000 yards rushing over the last 3 games. Oh, mercy. So what that tells you is if State can run the ball, I think they'll win the game. But could Auburn circle the wagons and come up with a great effort? We don't know.
Yeah, and Dan, I was going to say this. Dan on Facebook Live says Ike Hilliard is the OC right now at Auburn with Harsin, and that he's going to be calling the plays. So good luck to Ike.
Yes.
We'll see how they do. I don't know if you've heard any of this, Brent, but, sometimes these damn Mississippi fans, whether it's Mississippi State or Ole Miss fans, they have unrealistic expectations at times, right? So There's been a lot of people pissed off at Mike Leach for how they play. They have 2 or 3 games where they just play horrible. Well, Cohen now not being the AD who hired Mike Leach, have you heard any rumblings that Leach could be in trouble now that they're hiring a new AD?
I've heard it, but it's only rumors. look, whoever comes in there, they're not going to fire Leach. That would be a PR nightmare, frankly. Now, look, he's quirky, but he's funny, and look, they're going to be typically every year with him. They're going to they will make a bowl game, and they will do the same thing for this year. But yes, there's a little bit of that going on with the season kind of going off the rails. But at the same time, Shane, if you can get to 7-5, 8-4, and get into a bowl game, you're not going anywhere. Neither is Mike Leach.
Yeah, I mean, just having Leach and Lane in the same state is just outstanding in my opinion.
It is.
For my home state.
It really is.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, Gators are traveling to College Station. I haven't been there since my recruiting visit back in 1988, so I'm anxious to check this place out now.
Yes.
Two teams that are struggling, need a win. It's just shocking to me that A&M sits at 3-5. But we'll see. What do you see playing out in this game, Brent?
Well, one of the more interesting stats, Florida's 4-0 when they run for more than 210 yards, and 0-4 when they don't. Now, sometimes that's really great information. Sometimes it's just an oddity, and that's one thing that you've got. I was obviously at the game as you were. Difficult first half. Georgia just overwhelmed Florida. And again, when you've got 25 5-stars that Georgia does and Florida has 2, that's the reality of that. But I thought Florida showed a lot of fight in the third quarter, and that they were able to come back. Don't have the horses yet to win the game, but I think the effort should be praised. The big deal with this game is going to be, people haven't heard this yet, Connor Weigman, a guy you and I have talked about for months, is a freshman, and they've had either enough injuries or enough poor play from quarterbacks to where they've actually gone to Weigman now, and he was 28 of 44 for 338 in the loss to Ole Miss in a game they probably should have won. You've always got to watch out for Devin Achane. He's one of the better running backs in the league. Evan Stewart's one of the better wide receivers. A&M is on their first 4-game losing streak, Shane, since 2005. Mm-hmm. So, and look, I think if Florida plays a clean game, they're the better team. I think this is another one of those 50-50 games, frankly, that Florida really needs to get into a bowl game. Would be great to have them in the Gator Bowl or something similar to that. But I just think that if Florida can contain Weigman at all, they can run the ball well enough to be able to win this game.
Yeah, they need to run the football, no question. All right, Brent, 2 games and we'll get you out of here. The 2 big ones, one with 2 really good teams, the other one not so. Let's talk Tennessee, Georgia real quick. How do you see this playing out in Athens?
I just think Georgia wins the game. I still think Georgia is the better team. I think they've got the better roster overall. Now, Nolan Smith going out for Georgia is a blow. There's no getting over that, and that's unfortunate that they're outside the linebacker. But at the same time, I think what Georgia will try to do is they will try to get some pressure on Hooker. I think they'll have a much better plan against Tennessee than Alabama did, and I think they've got a better secondary. But to me, the key to this game is going to be Georgia being able to run the ball and keep and just shorten the game. I think that's going to be important with this too. Now, give Tennessee some credit. From out of nowhere, their defense played well against Kentucky. That surprised everybody, and it kind of raised the level of the team. But in the interest of time here, no, I think Georgia wins and takes control of the division.
Yes, I agree with that. And then Florida State, Miami. Down in, I was going to say Coral Gables, but it's in Miami. How you see that game going?
Well, Florida State's just playing better at this point. I mean, Florida State's, I think, easily going to make a bowl game. They're running the ball well. Trey Benson, Jordan Travis at quarterback, I think, is playing well too. I mean, they lead the nation with 15 touchdown drives of 80-plus yards. That's kind of interesting to think about that. There were times last week in that Miami-Virginia game that they had more punts than points. That was an incredibly ugly game. Give Miami credit for being able to win it. But Shane, at this point, I just think Florida State's playing much better. Unfortunately, Miami's not going to get much of a crowd advantage, are they?
No.
So in Miami, just not. That they've got quarterback issues with injuries. Jack Garcia, I think, probably is going to continue to be the quarterback here. Not real sure when Tyler Van Dyke comes back, but yes, I do think that Florida State will win, and that will help them tremendously.
Yeah, Brent, good stuff as always, buddy. We appreciate your time, and we will enjoy the games this weekend. We'll talk to you next week, my man.
Good. Can't wait, bud. Thank you.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan More Hotline. Going to take a quick time out. We'll come right back. We'll be joined by Chris Harry from FloridaGators.com talking a little Gator hoops. You're watching and listening to Pod Up Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit podupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points, where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shops, International Diamond Center, Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Wawa, the Gadget Guys, and the HBC's restaurant. Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, now selling head beer coach in draft and 16-ounce cans at Spurrier's, Advisors, Gator Games, and select stores around Gainesville. You will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators go to celebrate. Let's go to the Titan MR Hotline. And we're going to another guy who is definitely celebrating right now because he's getting ready to have a new owner for his NFL franchise. Chris Harry from FloridaGators.com. He loves his Redskins. Good morning, Chris. How are you, my man?
At the risk of being politically incorrect, I have the old helmet, or excuse me, the old hat and logo. You can't say the name, though. It's the Commanders.
Well, I can. Hell, I played for the Redskins. I can say all I want.
Okay, you did.
Speaking of that, I was talking to Fred Smoot the other day.
Were you really?
Yeah, because he works for the Red. He does a lot of TV stuff for him.
Uh-huh.
And I kept saying, yeah. He's like, you got to get up there. Anyway, I said something about the Redskins. Go, man, you can't call us the Redskins anymore, or the Commanders, so the Commies, whatever. So, Chris, real quick before we jump into hoops, I got this text on the Titan MR text line. I want to respond to it real quick. It's from an anonymous texter. He says, "Is there a mass exodus coming to Gainesville?" Maybe.
Of what?
I think he's talking about
players,
which there's nothing wrong with that. You're going to see turnover around America. If kids aren't playing, they're going to try to find somewhere where they can play. If there are kids on your roster that you don't think need to be on your roster, you're going to nicely tell them, we'll help you in the transfer portal. So, yes, I firmly believe that. And I don't know why fans get upset about that. We're losing. I mean, we have not won games in the last 2 years.
The object is to get the best players in your building and put them on the field. And I think you made a really good point, and you probably made it, knowing you probably made it 4 or 5 times on your podcast this week. Some of the better players on the team are guys that Billy Napier brought in a very short period of time and that have shown and been productive on the field. So let's see his eye for talent. Let's see him with a full recruiting cycle. And I know what he's doing out when it comes to his coaches going around. I'm talking about a full transfer portal recruiting cycle. You might say, okay, he had one last year, December. No, but nobody knew who he was. Nobody's been on our campus. Those guys hadn't seen the new facility, that kind of thing. So, I mean, mass exodus. A team that's won 3 SEC games over the last 15.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Real quick, Andy wanted me to ask you. This is on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law. Are you a Sonny Jurgensen fan?
Oh man, they used to have bumper stickers back in the old days, and when George Allen brought Billy Kilmer in, okay, Sonny Jurgensen got hurt in an exhibition game that first year in 1971. Billy Kilmer became a starting quarterback. I think they started that year 5-0, went to the playoffs for the first time out. But there were bumper stickers that said, "I root for Washington, and I like either Billy or Sonny." And you had one of those, and we had "I like Sonny." I didn't dislike Billy Kilmer by any stretch of imagination. The guy won a lot of games. He was a winner. But I always liked Sonny Jurgensen, and we saw him one time at a Toddle House at like 3:00 in the morning. This was after he played, but everyone said he was legendary there. He tried to. I think he tried to. He and Billy Kilmer went to one a night before a game at like 3:00 in the morning, and the waitress couldn't break 100 or something, and it got in the media. It was a pseudo big deal for back then, but. What are they doing out at 3:00 in the morning? I think they broke curfew a few times.
No doubt.
That's from the Paul Hornung. That's from the Paul Hornung, Max McGee era guys. Okay.
Yeah, I think he was joking around because I've told him the story about Sonny Jurgensen.
Oh, you have told him the number 9 turned upside down. Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's go basketball. They had their orange and blue scrimmage the other night in the O'Connell Center. I was trying to remember, is that the first time that a head coach has done anything like that, open to the public?
Mike White's first season, they had a Midnight Madness probably earlier in the day. I do remember that, where they did some scrimmaging and had a dunk contest and stuff. So not necessarily, they just don't do it a lot around here because it's probably not. It'll draw a crowd like it did the other day. Now I thought it was a pretty nice event. I mean, they scrimmaged for about 15, 16 minutes or so. Then they had a 3-point shooting contest and the dunk contest, and I think it was good because some people came out and got to see. Just got to see some new guys. They may do that more often now because now every year you're going to have 5-6 new guys on the court or on a roster. I think it's a pretty good idea to do that.
Yeah,
to getting to know you kind of thing.
For the people that obviously they've read about it or whatever, what stood out to you the most that kind of caught your eye? You've seen these guys practice all year long, but kind of they were. I don't want to say they were under the lights, but this was kind of like game type action. What stood out to you?
I'll say the same thing that Todd Golden said afterwards. Depth. They got a lot of players on the team. I mean, they got 2 guys that probably won't play, a couple freshmen that are probably going to redshirt. That leaves 11 players, and they all have made cases that they deserve to play. And Todd Golden has said, we're going to play maybe play 10, maybe 11 in non-league, but he wants a 9-man rotation when it comes to the SEC. So there's going to be some hurt feelings. That's not to say the same 2 guys are going to be those guys, because I also think he may go matchup wise, given his analytical background, may go hot hand. But there's a few guys that are definitely going to be on the court all the time or consistently. And of course it starts with Colin Castleton, the 6'11", two-time All-SEC player. I believe Kyle Lofton, the St. Bonaventure point guard. He's a fifth year. He started every game of his career up there, 116, averaged 38 minutes a game at the point guard position. He's a first true point guard this program has had since Andrew Nemhart. And I think in time, and the people that were there the other night, so I think in time, Will Richards is going to be a hard guy to keep off the floor. He may not be a long minutes guy, but I don't think he started either of the scrimmages that they had, the one against Miami and the one against Jacksonville. But he showed the other night. He had 3 3-pointers in a very short amount of time. He's a long defender. He just looks effortless and smooth with the way he plays basketball. He was a 12-point, 6.1 rebound guy last year at about 6'4.5" as a freshman at Belmont. Pretty good league, and it's 2 of his best games were against Vanderbilt and LSU. So he's going to be able to transition to the SEC pretty well, and I think he has a chance to be one of the better newcomers on this team with a bunch of newcomers.
All right, we got a couple of Facebook Lives here brought to you by Mel Law. I'm gonna read all 3 of these, Chris. And
by the way, here's my Art Monk Hall of Fame mug.
Art Monk. So you are so excited your team is getting ready to be sold.
One of my top 3 former players growing up from that franchise. Yes.
You're so excited that your team is being sold. John says the thing that stood out to him was that Klatsky won the 3-point shootout. Andy asked, Chris, in your view, what would define an acceptable season for the Gators? An NCAA tournament bid, or do we need at least one tourney win? And then John says, I've been hearing Reeves, I can't pronounce his name very well, has taken a huge Kawasi has taken a huge leap this all season. So you want to chime in on those 3 comments?
So for your future effort, make it easy on yourself. Go call him Wasey. That's kind of what he goes by. Wasey. That's right.
He got a haircut too.
He sure did. He lost I called it a spout, but
is Todd Golden kind of like the Yankees? You got to have like a legitimate hairdo.
Nah, he's gonna let him grow like Medusa if they can grow it that far. But let's see now. Yeah, Klasky won 3-point shootout. He beat Myron Jones in the final. Even Todd said afterwards, he goes, "Who knows? Maybe we'll throw him out there late half possession to get some shots up because he is a pretty good shooter and he shows that in practice." What was the other?
The other one was about, do the Gators need to make the tournament or win a tournament game? And I tell people all the time is, football teams have goals, basketball teams have goals. The number one goal, I would say, for the basketball team, it's got to be written on the whiteboard, make the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm. That would be like Steve Sturrier saying, win the East, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's it. Making the NCAA tournament is not making a bowl game. Billy Diamond used to say, if you're in it, if you can't win it unless you're in it. So you got to get to the NCAA tournament. And those are the expectations Todd Golden has for this team. I told a story on the radio the other day. They were in practice a couple weeks ago. He stopped practice and he said, no, this isn't good enough. You look like an NIT team out here. NA ran. He split them in 2 groups, set the clock at 3 minutes and made them run down and backs. And they had to hit a certain number for 3 straight minutes of running. Then he put the bigs in and they had to do the same thing. So that's his expectation. And he's told them, he goes, I expect to be what the program was a team that came around in March, make the tournament and play into March. So those are the expectations you're going to have for this team. Now, are they realistic or not? I mean, you've seen Florida picked anywhere from 5th to 9th in the SEC. I actually saw Blue Ribbon Handbook, which is one of the Bibles out there. They have them at 9th and they have Ole Miss ahead of them. I don't know about that. The AP rankings came out and 6 SEC teams are in the top 25. Florida is picked 7th in that thing, and they're like one of those receiving votes teams. So it's going to be a really, really difficult league. But I think the element of the unknown Florida has is pretty good. Now, a lot of those other schools have that, but I saw Kentucky in their first exhibition game started. Are you ready for this? 5 seniors. That meant those 3 McDonald's All-American freshmen.
Are those 5 seniors? Were they Calipari's recruits or they're all transfers?
Well, some of them are transfers. I mean, Oscar Tshiebwe was the NCAA Player of the Year and the SEC Player of the Year last year. He's a transfer, but he's in his second year, obviously. But there's some Jacob Toppin is a guy who's obviously his brother Obi was from from Dayton or whatever. But I mean, they have guys that have been around a while, so it's going to be a difficult league. I think Arkansas is going to be really good. They're really young, but they recruited 3 McDonald's All-Americans, so I think 3 5-stars and 3 4-stars. So they're going to have 6 really, really talented freshmen playing on the team. Not a lot of leftovers from that team last year, but they've been the Elite Eight the last 2 years, and Eric Musselman has proved he's a pretty good coach.
Chris, I got a question for you regarding Colin Castleton. Okay, they say he's a 3-point shooter now, or that he's got the green light. Okay. And a lot of people say, well, he needs to develop that to play in the NBA, blah, blah, blah. It's not Todd Golden's job or responsibility to prepare him to make it in the NBA. It's his job to be the best college basketball player he can be for the Gators. It's just the same way some of these people talk about, we got to get that guy ready to play in the NFL. No, it's win games at your college. So my 2-part question, do you think Todd Golden is addressing that? And does he actually, like, games on the line, is Colin Castleton going to pull the trigger to knock down a 3?
Well, I mean, if the game's like a last second shot, are you going to work a 3-point shot?
You know what I'm saying. We're not going to draw up plays for him to shoot threes.
If he's wide ass open, he'll attempt a 3. He did one the other night, and it didn't work out well. He's 0 for 17 shooting 3 points in his career. Okay, but to get him back, to get him ready for the NBA, he does have to shoot 3-point shots. And if you want the team to be as good as it can be, having a 6'11" guy who can shoot 3-point shots is what the game is now. You want to get Oscar Tshiebwe away from the post, you have a 3-point shooting big. So let's try to do that. If it doesn't work out, then figure something else out. But they're convinced the guy can make them. Okay, and I see him shoot him in practice, and he can make them. He just hasn't made any in real live ball action yet. So is that going to be option 1, 2, or 3? No, of course not. But it needs to be something. If they can keep defenses honest and the guy can make one, like this one a week or something like that, that'd be a big jump. And that'd be a huge difference maker in terms of widening the lane, because the Gators have some straight line drivers now that can do some stuff, some playmaking kind of guys that can go downhill and make things happen if they can get a big out from under the block.
So the first game is it Monday or Tuesday night?
Monday night against
Monday
Stony
night.
Brook.
So right now, Chris Harry, you're starting 5 Monday night.
Well, I've been back and forth on this one, and I got to do this pregame kind of thing where I got to punch in. You got Castleton, you got Colleton or Kyle Lofton. Those two are given. Now we got to work our way around that. I think Kwesi Reeves has played his way into the. Oh, I guess somebody asked me about that. I think Kwesi Reeves has played away. He started off slow, Shane. Now, he had a really strong finish to last season. In the postseason, he averaged 16 points a game, shot 50% from the floor, 40 for 3. He was terrific against Miami in the scrimmage, not so good against Jacksonville in the second scrimmage. I think he's deserved of one of those spots. I said, I don't know if they're going to start Will Richards right away. I'm not sure. They may give Myron Jones a go. He's a 5th-year senior, the active leader in 3-pointers made in college on this team. Where am I? How many guys is that? And don't sleep on Riley Kugel, the freshman from Orlando. He's been really good at times, and he's just this rare kind of athletic, kind of gifty guy. He was a little sloppy the other night in the scrimmage, but they had officials, but they didn't call fouls. Guys were throwing balls behind their back and stuff like that. So I think that's where we are right now. There's going to be either Felder or Alex Fudge who's going to be starting at the 4 position. I think it's going to be C.J. Felder, but Fudge is going to play a lot. Again, this goes back to the very first question you asked me. They got 11 guys that they can mix and match, and I definitively I got 2 guys is all right now. And I'll be honest with you, when leaving the coach's office early this week, I'm not sure they had more than 2 guys. They were leaning in some directions, but they're still kind of figuring stuff out. They still got two or three practices left to figure to definitively say who's going to start in that first game, and whoever starts the first game doesn't mean they're going to start the second one or third or beyond.
All right, last thing for you here. Got a text on the Titan More text line. from Jimmy in Chattanooga. He says, Chris, who is your sleeper player for the Gator basketball team? I guess somebody kind of come out of the blue.
Yeah, Jimmy up in Chattanooga. Belmont's in Nashville. And I'll just say Will Richards is a guy who I think is going to be a really, really good player here. I don't know how long he's going to be here. I think that's kind of how good he is. Again, slow.
What year is he?
He's only a sophomore, man. And he got hurt like a couple of days before the first official preseason practice. He hurt his knee, sprained his knee. So he didn't practice for about 3.5 weeks. And so he's just kind of working his way back a little bit, but I mean, he's got no limitations. He can play as much as they want him to, but that's kind of slowed his progress a little bit in the preseason. But he was on the newcomer of the year team last year in the Ohio Valley Conference, and he was a player out of Atlanta who didn't get much of a look for some reason. But he is he's my sleeper, and don't go to sleep on him being in the starting lineup pretty quick.
So when you mentioned you don't know how long he's going to be around here, he's good enough that he could leave after 1 year?
I think he's a pro, yeah. He looks like a pro. He's only 6'5", but he can do a lot of different things. And I just think he has that kind of look to him a little bit.
So is Todd Golden going to be a quarter zip guy on the sideline, or do you think he's going to be decked out in a suit?
No. He's a quarter zip guy. He's a quarter zip and joggers is how I see him. Absolutely, yeah. By the way, people, I would like to plug. I wrote a magazine style kind of piece on Todd Golden that ran on our website FloridaGators.com called Golden Opportunity. It's a long story, but people don't know who Todd Golden is. Read that story; they'll find out a lot about him, some anecdotal things, and find out how competitive and how much belief he has in himself. I talked to some people who shed some really good light. I feel like I knew him a lot better, and he was real helpful in putting me in touch with some of those people, members of his family, old best friends, former coaches he played for, that kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. Last thing. I said last thing. Second last thing. This is the last thing. Dan says, sounds like the women's basketball team will have some decent play from their transfers.
Well, I went to the thing last night. Now, St. Leo didn't give them much of a game at all. But they did have 7 or 8 players in double figures. They got a transfer from West Virginia. I'm just learning these players myself. A transfer from St. John's. The transfer from Texas can't play. She came here too late. Transfer from Purdue, a 6'6" girl named Shay, and she led the team in scoring last night. She could shoot from the elbow. She can post up, and they look like a basketball team. They were picked, I believe, 5th or 6th preseason in the SEC. But Kelly Ray Finley has some players. She lost her best player, Zippy Broughton, to a shoulder injury, but you couldn't say this in the past. They have depth on this team, and she's going to have some of those same issues trying to figure out who's going to play and who's getting the bulk of the minutes. And remember, women have 15 players on scholarship versus men have 13. So she's got some girls, man. They should be a pretty good team this year, and they were last year.
All right, Chris, great stuff. You can follow Chris on Twitter at GatorsChris and check out all his work on FloridaGators.com. Appreciate it, my man.
See you, Shane.
All right, that's Chris Harry. Join us on the Titan Memorial Hotline. Rules-Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. Before we get out of here, let's get this day in sports. It's brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Beat the summer heat. Schedule your air conditioner's tune-up today, keeping you chill in the Florida heat far away. Give Comfort Temp a call at 352-376-2366. This day in sports in 1934, New York Yankees first baseman Lou Gehrig wins the American League Triple Crown after hitting .363, 49 homers, 165 RBIs. But the Philadelphia A's catcher, Mickey Cochran, is named the AL MVP. I don't know how that happened. That's crazy. That's This Day in Sports, brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. JC and I are Peachland Dental weekend picks. We'll talk a little bit more about the Aggies. Supposed to have a guest from the Aggies. We're trying to get that coordinated. But I appreciate you joining our program. And have a great day, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.